You are our expert today in family law and probate law, which we know that runs the gambit of situations. But let's start with maybe a divorce.
Okay, so family law covers child custody, dissolution of marriage, any modifications of existing orders that relate to time sharing or things like that. And then probate law is the quick and the dead is what I call it. I like that area of law because the most important person cannot speak, okay, which is the decedent, except the family. I'm learning has a whole new perspective about whether or not mama really intended for that brooch to go to the sister or to go to them. So let me tell you from family law first. The most important thing you can do in family law is determine what it is you want. If you want a divorce and you reach a certain threshold monetarily, you probably need to get a lawyer. If you want a divorce because you made a mistake and 1 year later you realize you want out of it, there are forms in the clerk's office that I'm sure you brought here today that you can access that can guide you as long as you don't have children or property. So family law is one of those areas where there's a lot of what we call pro se meaning self-represented, that you can get things from the clerk off the web, from the Supreme Court website that tell you how to navigate. Child support is the big issue. If you have a child and that child by Florida law is entitled to be supported. That's whether you marry or whether you're not married. Okay, it's a public policy. So you can go and get child support if you're married, okay? But that's not what you typically hear about. But child support is all by statute. So, you think you know what the daddy's making or he thinks he knows what the mom is making. It really will come down to what the provable income is. And once you establish the provable income, it goes into a statutory formula that nobody understands how it works. I'm giving you
No, you have to look at the formula.
Yeah, I'm giving you truth. Nobody. With all due respect, judges, the judges don't, the lawyers don't. We don't understand how we come out with that number. And then we come out with that number, we say, you are ordered to pay this much, and that's what we do. Enforcement actions is a really big part of family law, and you can get that without paying a lawyer. You can get that through the Department of Revenue. It takes a little bit longer maybe if you have private counsel, but they have the ability to access information that most lawyers and parents don't. They can go out on the IRS website, they can go to the Employee Wage Earner website, and they can make magic. You say, my client makes $2,342 a month. And you have the Department of Revenue on the case, and they say, Your Honor, we show for the first quarter they made $52,000. And you say, why you ain't tell me? I would charge no more attorney's fees. But I'm serious, they have access and resources to find out about things like that. Family law is, for me, sometimes characterized as domestic terrorism or domestic turmoil. Okay, so when does family law intersect with criminal law? That battery thing, you snatched it out of his hand. Okay, girl, that's battery. And then, you talk about the slip and fall. How did you slip and fall? Well, he came after me. I slipped and fall in our house, and now we're getting a divorce. Okay, you need to talk to him. You have some actions there. So it's intersected in a lot of different areas. When I do family law, I am always amazed that I end up having some issue where actually the child is acting out in school because he doesn't want his parents to get divorced, and so now he's in delinquency court. I mean, it's just a lot of variety of things. Switching real quick to probate. Let me tell you, everybody doesn't have an estate. You probate when you have an estate. Okay, everybody doesn't have an estate. What is an estate? Okay, typically, in a marriage, you have the marital home. That's a purchase home, not a leased home, not an apartment home. I'm talking a purchased home. That in death becomes what we call your homestead. Constitutional right, it is protected from all creditors. Okay, you're sitting there and you're looking and all the bills coming in and dad granddaddy about to transition and what's gonna happen. You're not responsible for those debts. That's the first thing you need to know. So don't be letting the bill collector tell you, you know, you need to pay this, you need to do this. As to your homestead, it is bulletproof except to the mortgage people. All right, if there's a mortgage on it, they can come. The other thing is, you need to write down what you have. If you think you have an estate, if you want something, you need to write it down and get 2 signatures. That constitutes a will in the state of Florida. You don't have to go to the lawyer. I want you to come to me now. But you don't have to come to a lawyer. Write it down, 2 witnesses, and your signature. All right, you want to jump in?
No.
Okay. And so, and what you want to dispose of, your testamentary intent is what it's called, you know, just needs to be clear. You do need to say that, you know, you're of sound mind. You do need to be able to prove that you're not under any undue influence or coercion. Let me say it this way. I was shocked at how many cases I've had in this area where it is clear that one of the children got to one of the parents and convinced them to put them on all the bank accounts, all the property, all of everything. And the other siblings was just, she's so good, devoted to mama. She's so good. And when mama passed, she got everything and the other siblings got nothing. Okay, it's real. Okay, so you wanna make sure, this is the real piece I want you to take away. Make sure if you are caring for a loved one or an aged person, make sure you know what's going on. Because it's too late after they transition to make a lot of the legal arguments that you would want to make in court. It really is. And Judge Baker Carter sat in probate. So, I mean, I'm telling you, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what the bills are. We don't know what the Social Security amount was. We don't know what, you know, checks were coming in the house. We don't know what money was going out of the house. But then when they pass, we start finding out things. And, oh, I didn't know this. I didn't know that. Be proactive. Don't wait. And for all of you all in here, whatever your age is, durable power of attorney, not a power of attorney, durable power of attorney, because that survives if you lose capacity to make a decision. Living will tells what you want to happen to you if you become unable to communicate for yourself, and there have to be extraordinary life-saving measures undertaken. A last will and testament, you got to have something to give something. So if you got something, you should have one. If you don't, I mean, everybody can bequeath whatever they want, but if you don't, then you really don't need one, because there is a Florida statute that says what happens if you die without a will and what happens if you die with a will. And I'll stop here, so just...
Yeah, absolutely. A segue to that, and we'll open up for question and answers in a minute, so begin to jot your things down. But I often hear us talk about, when we talk about probate law, grandma, and how Auntie Judy's taking everything from grandma. But we have young people who are leaving us, unfortunately, on a daily basis. And what would be your words of wisdom, maybe to those who are not as in the older demographic, but in the younger demographic, and making sure they have their house in order?
So if you're a minor, you really, there's never going to be, other than perhaps if your parents or someone has an insurance policy when you quote-unquote estate, okay? If you're in your 20s and your 30s, you know, I do remember those years, and, you know, I was very immortal at that time. I wasn't ever going to die or age or any of those things. But there are things like the durable power of attorney and you know, making sure somebody knows how you want your body disposed of. There's a great movement right now in my area with probate, with cremation. African Americans didn't used to, you know, look at that as a viable option, but now it is. And I've got a legal dispute right now as to whether or not, because they said they wanted to be cremated, ain't nobody in his family done ever been burned. They ain't gonna try to be burning, and we ain't gonna honor their wishes. And you know, it's now a legal dispute. In the body, are we gonna have the service yet? So, So again, if you're young, it's the same thing as if you're aged. You should make sure people know what happens. Tomorrow is not promised, and we don't believe that. We say it, we grew up in the church hearing it, but it's true. And so yes, we have young people dying all the time. And I'm saying they are working young. They are 21 and older, and they are getting shot, run, whatever the consequences. And they have nothing. They have children. They've not made any provisions for their children if they die. If you have a child, okay, family law and probate law, if you have a child, you should make sure, if you're ordered to pay child support, sometimes the court orders you to maintain an insurance policy that covers that amount so that if something happens to you. If you haven't had that happen, when you go see the judge, you should ask the judge to give you that, because it's a way to cover you if something were to happen in your youth while we think we're immortal.
Thank you
Okay.
so much. Good information. We're going to transition now to our Q&A hour. It's 11 o'clock. But before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about why the president of Tallahassee Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta is sitting in the corner. We are collecting children's books. And if you did not have the opportunity to bring one today, later on an Amazon wish list will be provided so that, we continue not to just have these to be empowered, but also to empower other people. And we know that learning and reading is always a way to do that. Now that that public service announcement has been complete, I'll go ahead and turn it over to the audience for any questions. Yes.